Here are the exact steps that I would use if I gained 30 pounds of body fat and had to get lean as soon as possible. Let's say for whatever reason I was forced to get fat and Marvel called and they said, "Hey Adam, we're making a new Thor movie and we need a ripped, pale Irish actor. Can you get lean ASAP?" And had all the knowledge and experience that I have now, here's exactly what I do, and I'll share some thought processes along the way so that you can implement it and understand the way that I'm thinking. For context, if you're new here, my name's Adam. I'm a health and fitness coach. I've competed in natural bodybuilding many times. I have a master's in nutrition and currently I'm doing a doctorate. So the first thing that I would do is figure out my start and end point to give me a rough idea of how long it would take. So let's just say I'm all of a sudden 215 pounds at 20% body fat, which isn't terrible, but it's not very lean by any means. And I wanted to get to 10% body fat. I'd calculate what that means in terms of how much I would need to lose each week and what weight, roughly speaking, that I'd be by the end. It would give me just a rough ballpark figure. When I go and use the projection tool that I made, it spits out around 30 pounds of body fat. Now this is really important because so many people just start dieting with no benchmark, no milestones, no way to track if they're making progress. They just diet down with no direction and hope that someday they'll just feel happy with how they look. That's what amateurs do, not what people who are going to be in a Thor movie do. Now this also highlights another problem, is that you probably need to lose more than me if you've got more than 20% body fat. 99% of people underestimate how much fat they need to lose. Get it out of your head that you want to be X weight at a certain body fat percentage. I get the appeal, but you don't get to choose how much weight you have to lose in order to be a certain percentage of body fat. If you want to lose 20 pounds, that's fine, but you can't say I want to lose 20 pounds and be at this magical body fat percentage. This projection tool that I talked about is free. If you haven't downloaded it, go download it now. It will give you an exact representation of how much you need to lose. So instead of a random arbitrary weight loss number every week, I would go by percentage of body weight loss, because I want to lose fat and I don't want to lose muscle, but I also want to make sure that I can stick to it or adhere to the program long enough to get to the weight that I desire. Personally, I'm going to aim for around 1%, but anything between 1.5 and 0.75% is going to be an acceptable range in my books. Anything faster than this and I'll probably lose muscle, and then anything lower than that I'll just lose motivation or it won't be very fast. So next, and this is the most important thing by far, and that is nutrition. Now calories are the most important thing. It's not the only important thing, but it's the most important thing. And there's no magical calorie intake or calculator that's going to give you an exact amount that you need to eat. But I like to start by calculating my body weight in pounds and then multiplying that by 10. So in this case, that's 2,150. You can lose fat by not tracking calories, but we've got a deadline and we want to be as efficient, as effective as possible. So tracking your calories is by far going to be the best way to do this. So next, what I do is I'd use a tracking app like MyFitnessPal or MacroFactor. They're both decent. I have both of them. I would get the paid version of MyFitnessPal. MacroFactor, you have to pay for it. But in all honesty, I would use MacroFactor because it's easier to use and it's got a better database. Plug here, if you do use MacroFactor, use Adam14 for a 2-week trial, but MyFitnessPal will also work. So what I do is I'd go into the calorie goal section of these apps and then I put in my calories, which is 2150, and then I give myself 1 gram of protein for every pound of body weight. So that's 215 grams of protein, and then I'd split the rest of the calories between carbs and fats. I don't really have a preference for which one's higher. I'd probably go maybe lower fat and then maybe slightly higher carbohydrates, but just making sure that I stay with that number of 2150. Now, I plan my meals in a way that's going to help me best sustain the deficit. When it comes to dieting, the North Star is optimizing for hunger. If you can't stick to the deficit, it doesn't matter what supplements you take or how good you think you're doing, you simply just won't progress. So what I'd actually do is I just log into MacroFactor and then I put in a full day's worth of food just to see kind of the rough amounts of each food that I need to get at each meal in order to hit those numbers of protein, carbs and fats. It would also make me think about what foods I actually need to buy in the grocery store. It's so overlooked when people get to the middle of the week, they don't actually have the food that they need that's on their plan or strategy. Now, at the moment, I personally use these meal prep companies a lot of times where they just send you the meals in the post or you just go and buy them. Or I would just plan my day at the start of the day. As the calories get lower, you end up just smashing through your calorie goal and your fat and carb goal. But it's really hard to hit your protein goal while also kind of staying within that calorie number. Often the foods that they choose to put in these meals are often not optimized for hunger either. So it just makes it more difficult to stick to the calorie goal. So what I would do is I'd prepare all my meals myself and weigh out everything on a food scales, except for things like protein powder or turkey burger, because there's going to be pretty much no deviation and it's going to be pretty consistent with the weight. Remember, I'm trying to do this as fast and as effectively as possible, and it's my number one priority, so everything needs to be accounted for. So I'd wake up around 6 a.m, have a black coffee and not eat anything until around 10 a.m. Nothing magic about fasting, it just personally helps me because I tend to get hungrier in the evening when I'm not working. So around 10 I'd have some cooked oats in water, some frozen blueberries in there as well. Then I'd have a serving or two of whey protein to get about 40 grams of protein. I'd also have some kiwis and melon that I would have cut up that morning or the day before. These are two of the best fruits when you're dieting because they're just so low in calorie density. I'd probably have another black coffee around this time as well because I know that I'm going to be hungry. At around 1 to 2, I'd have 2 turkey burgers, 2 packs of steamed fresh vegetables, a small amount of boiled white potatoes, baby potatoes, and an apple as well. Potatoes are great, by the way. They're one of, if not the highest food on the satiety index table, basically meaning that per calorie, they are the best for hunger. The turkey burgers are easy to make, they don't taste too bad, and they're the type of meat that when you cook and you leave them in the refrigerator for a few days, they don't get all disgusting. And then with the steamed fresh vegetables, there's nothing amazing about them, but you can just pop them in the microwave on the morning, or personally because I work from home, I just do it at lunchtime. Now about 4, I'd start to get pretty hungry again, so I'd have a packet of popcorn, I'd say, and then a kind of fiber bar, like a chocolate fiber bar or something like that. Popcorn's great as it takes a while to eat, it fills me up, and then the fiber bar of course is high in fiber, and that will help me with any kind of sweet cravings that I get around that mid-afternoon. Really important note here is I like to get things like the fiber bars, which I like but I don't love. If I got things that I really love, like small chocolate bars with the same amount of calories, I'd often be triggered to eat more than just one, and that could lead me to eating the whole pack in the pantry. This just wouldn't happen with fiber bars because I just don't really like them that much. And if I was really craving something sweet at this time, I'd probably get like a Diet Pepsi or a Diet Sprite or something like that as well. Now, for dinner, the evening meal would be something similar to the turkey burgers, but I would be a little bit more flexible here, probably because I'm going to cook with my girlfriend or just want a bit of variety. I'd have something like 2 chicken breasts with some spices, maybe some red meat, probably have some potatoes again for the hunger reasons, and then make a big side salad bowl kind of thing with cucumbers, tomatoes, maybe some feta cheese and some light dressing. Sometimes here now I might have like an omelette instead with some egg yolks and egg whites and some other vegetables and maybe some light kind of slim bagels as well. Now the last meal of the day would remain exactly the same every single day for simplicity's sake, and again optimizing for hunger, because waking up in the middle of the night because you're hungry is a disaster, especially for the next day when it's going to make you even hungrier because you haven't slept well. And here what I would do is 0% Greek yogurt. Greek yogurt is great because it's really high in viscosity, meaning like it's just really thick. I'd also add some high fiber cereal like All Bran, and then maybe some banana or fresh blueberries and some peanut butter as well. Again, every single thing tracked every single day. What the diet ends up being is just mainly just whole, unprocessed foods, because typically these are the best for satiety without compromising on micronutrients. Now, tracking your macros isn't the longest lever that everybody can pull, and it's not what I do with every single client, at least to start off. But again, we're focused on what I would do. Next is training, and obviously you need to be able to train with weights if you want to maintain muscle or even build muscle. If you don't, you'll just lose muscle. So I rarely train with weights more than 4 days per week, and actually at the moment I'm just training 3 days per week. And I honestly wouldn't really change anything at all. What builds muscle also maintains muscle. So I'd stick with my current training plan, which is like an upper lower split, 1 day upper, 1 day lower, and then the 3rd day is a full body day. I do about 10 to 14 sets per body part per week, 2 to 3 exercises per body part, and then anywhere in that kind of 5 to 20 rep range. But honestly, literally nothing would change, at least initially. It sounds overly simple with the training, but the reality is that it is overly simple. Now, I wouldn't do any cardio specifically per se. At the moment, I'm actually doing quite a lot of running because I enjoy it, but let's just make this simple and say I'm not doing anything. So to start, the only thing that I would focus on is steps, and I'd set it at 12,000. It's kind of an arbitrary number, but I know for me, I need to get my step count up. Steps work well as you can get them in multiple times throughout the day, and you don't have to shower. For example, if I was doing cardio in the morning, then training in the evening, that means I'd have to shower in the morning, and then also shower in the evening, and I'd be going through so much clothes, and it would just make it more difficult for me to be consistent. Now, since I work online and I work at home, if I didn't actively go for walks, my step count would be something around 3,000 per day, which is just extremely low. And this is where a lot of remote workers go wrong. Diet is decent, they don't overeat, but they barely move. And fat loss only occurs for the most part if you eat less calories than you expend. That is with the exception, of course, of in some cases bodybuilders use certain drugs and steroids that help you lose fat and build muscle at the same time, but I don't use them and I don't plan to start either. So the diet is simple, as in you systemize it, you keep it easy to follow and you prepare, but the training and the steps can be where people, even myself, seem to struggle. So I'd open up my calendar on my computer and I'd actually plan out the times when I'm going to train and when I'm going to walk throughout the week. It seems pedantic, but honestly, if it's a priority, it needs to be planned, otherwise other things just get taken over. So what I do, and what I've always done, is I wake up, get my shoes on, have a black coffee, and then go out for a walk around 45 to 60 minutes, which would knock off around 5,000 or 6,000 steps. And that would set me up well for the rest of the day, knowing that, okay, now I only need to get around 6,000 more steps for the rest of the day. As a rule of thumb, I'd always want to have about half of my step goal for the day done before lunch, because if I didn't, it just got difficult to hit them at the end of the day. Going for an evening walk is difficult because stuff comes up in the evening, and also like walking for like an hour and a half in the evening is just not fun. I also personally have a walking pad, which is one of those home treadmills. So what I personally would do is walk for around 1 hour in between meetings or in between calls, and that would tick off another 2,000 throughout the day. At lunch, I do another quick walk, maybe around the block, and then at the end of the day, when I finish work, I'll probably get another quick walk, and that would probably leave me around that 12,000 mark. Now, if I found that this was just way too time consuming after the first week, I'd probably just reduce my calorie intake more, but calories can only go so low, and you get to a point where you're just constantly hungry, and that's a disaster for adherence. As far as eating out goes, I would really limit it or completely avoid it, to be honest. If things were moving along nicely and I was making good progress, I'd allow myself to maybe have a meal out now and then, but I'd be really sensible about it. I'd either try to fit the meal into the calorie target, or maybe I'd just allow myself a few hundred extra calories. But if I wasn't hitting that kind of 0.75 to 1.5%, then I'd probably just avoid it. For snacks and for more fun foods like chocolate, which I do love, initially I'd avoid them because I just don't crave them that much, but over time I probably would start incorporating them into the calories, especially if I felt like I was really struggling with a diet and I was going to go on a binge or something. But again, I wouldn't do this too much. I wouldn't proactively try and do it because they're not great for optimizing hunger levels. Same goes for things like alcohol. I do go to a lot of weddings. I'm just at that point in my life, but I'd also do my best to try and stay within the calorie range and drink things like vodka or spirits, and in general just kind of limit the alcohol, but also just accept the fact that on those days I'm probably just going to be a little bit more over my calories than I would like. Now, supplements are an area that I wouldn't overly fuss about, honestly. I just continue to do what I'm currently doing, which is creatine monohydrate, multivitamin, magnesium, and then sometimes a pre-workout supplement that I use. The only one that I would specifically add in this phase is 1,000 milligrams of combined EPA and DHA, because even though at the moment I eat quite a bit of fatty fish, because of the nature of the lower calories, I'd probably cut out fish because they have high calorie and they're also high in fat. And this is exactly what I would do, down to the specific foods. I might have missed a few very minor things that I forgot to talk about, but this is 99% of it. I track my body weight every single morning after I went to the bathroom and before drinking everything, and then once a week I'd get my spreadsheet out. I put all the weights in. If I hadn't done that already, then I'd average the weight loss across the whole week and see if it matched in that kind of goal range. Now, the average is really important because there's going to be days where weight is just up for a number of reasons, so getting that average gives you much better data. If things were going in the right direction, as in like a hit between that 1.5 and 0.75, I wouldn't change anything, like absolutely nothing. If it wasn't in that range, let's say it was only 0.4%, then I'd either adjust my calories down by like about 100 from fats and carbs, and that of course means then changing the portion sizes, or I just add more steps. Now, since I work at home and 12,000 steps is already pretty time consuming and will be an effort, I'd probably just lower the calories. But I do know for sure that at some point, maybe it's when I'm like halfway down, like 15 pounds down, that both are going to have to be adjusted. And by the end, the reality is once I dip below that like high 180s, as in like over 25 pounds lost, like calories are going to be pretty low and steps are going to be high. Like calories are going to be like 1,600 and steps are going to be like 15,000. Now that sounds awful, and in my experience, to be honest, it kind of is, but for me, I know that that's necessary. Fat loss is simple. It's not complicated, although many people think it is. If you have 20, 30, 40 pounds to lose, if you follow this religiously and use the projection tool that I made you, you will literally have everything you need to get lean. Now, I said it's simple, but it's not easy. Being completely transparent, sticking to this plan is going to be difficult for most people. So if you want my support and guidance to help you and to help you implement this, then check out my one-to-one coaching program. It's linked below and we can chat about your specific roadmap. If you have any questions, leave them down below. I respond to all of them. And if you like the video, make sure to subscribe and like the video, and I'll see you in the next one.